Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, 49ers Plus Minus with my co-host, the one and only Matt Barrows, who's just gone back through a review, replay, rewatch of the 49ers game we watched last night. I cannot imagine doing that, but you are dedicated at your craft, Barrows. You are slinging it through the X's and O's. I could barely watch it live, frankly, sitting next to you in the press box. 12-6, 49ers lost to the Los Angeles Rams. They get swept by the Rams, team they used to dominate. And let me think this through. You had Deebo Samuel a few days after he complained that he wasn't getting enough opportunities, drop a touchdown pass in front of everyone. You had De'Vondre Campbell literally quit the team. Essentially, we're recording this on Friday morning. He hasn't been cut yet, but I got to imagine De'Vondre Campbell's getting cut. You had the 49ers, not mathematically, but for all reasonable sense, drop out, get eliminated from the playoffs. Any shot at the playoffs with 3 weeks to go. I don't know. Anything else I'm missing there, Barrows? I guess Dre Greenlaw was the nice, the bonus of seeing him run around and blow up people for a half. But whole lot going on, Barrows. What do you want to pick to talk about first?
I mean, there was a ton. I mean, De'Vondre Campbell did us a favor. I mean, it was a shock. It was something to write about. It was in stark contrast to Dre Greenlaw. I called it the tale of two linebackers last night. It's weird because it provided some fire for this team. There were some really, really sharp quotes from people. Charvarius Ward playing after the loss of his 1-year-old daughter. A lot of these guys playing with injuries, coming back from injuries. And Campbell decides that he's not going into the game in the third quarter. We don't really know why. He was frustrated early in the season when D. Winters got snaps ahead of him, sort of ironically, in Los Angeles against the Rams. And as you noted during the Bears game, that started to happen in the second half of the Bears game on Sunday and was happening from jump last night, Thursday night. I don't think it was any surprise to anyone. Shouldn't have been a surprise to Campbell that Dre Greenlaw was starting ahead of him. But I think when D. Winters got into the game ahead of him, that might have been, in his mind, the straw that broke the camel's back. And he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he left the field. And my point is that you would think that this is the game where the 49ers come away with a lot of resignation. Like, okay, our season's over. We're not going to make the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, George Kittle kind of had this fight in him. Nick Bosa had this fight in him. Charvarius Ward had this. It was very critical of De'Vondre Campbell, had this fight in him. It's just sort of an interesting mix of emotions with 3 games to go.
Yeah, I just thought this morning, not in time for my column, it almost felt like, though, just thinking about it, it took somebody literally quitting on the team for the leaders of the team to decide to publicly say they're not quitting on the whole era. Like it was just such a, like, oh my God, wait a minute. Like, this guy's not going to play for us. There's still something here to fight for. It's like, it doesn't mean it's going to rally for 2025, but I think you saw them have to say it. They saw them have to think about it. Sure sounds like Shanahan lit him up. Not he was gone. I'm sure Campbell was out of the locker room, but in the post game, speech to the team or whatever he says, they all heard about it then. I think Shanahan brought it up then, and I'm sure because we saw how angry he was, minutes later talking to us, he must have been furious, and I think that kind of set the tone for what the players, the leaders, Kittle, Charvarius Ward, which I think it's notable. Charvarius Ward, who probably isn't going to be on this team next season, still felt the pride of what they are in that locker room, of what they mean to each other. And then you put that next to Dre Greenlaw coming back from an Achilles tear, dying to play, right? Any snap he could have gotten before yesterday would have been precious to him. The snaps he got yesterday were precious to him. And then you have somebody in his own position who's mad because Dre Greenlaw's back in, refused to play when D. Winters got hurt and Dre Greenlaw had to come out because I think, his muscles stiffened up or something for the first time playing in over 300 days. That there's something worth here, right? I mean, maybe it's not worth it. We don't know. It certainly hasn't proven to be, a dynamic that's got them going this season. But I definitely felt that rage. Like, whoa, wait a minute here. Like, this is not who we are. Kind of, and they did not play well. Defense played mostly well, but the offense played terribly. But I do think there was, I don't know if it's circle the wagons, it gets cliche, but like I think there was an awakening of we are not that guy. That guy cannot represent who we are in that locker room. And I don't think he does. Maybe he does. I mean, it's not a sign of good things, but man, that fire was something. Like if this team had quit Barrows, I don't want to overgeneralize. I don't know how big a deal this would have been. It would have been a big deal, but not like what we heard. If this team had just given up, thrown in the towel, who cares? Because it was so fiery, because it was so explosive in there, I get the sense what the team was saying, we are not done here. Maybe this year, but not in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, you could see over the last 3 games of the season, some of the veterans saying, "Okay, it's not worth it to me to be on the field. You know, I've been dealing with this quad injury, this ankle injury. It's not worth it." It seems like they will double their efforts. I mean, I'm not saying that each of these injured guys will play. The injuries could be too much for them to play, but my sense is that they are going to send a signal and do whatever they can to play. I mean, Bosa was asked that. I mean, do you plan to play the rest of these games? I mean, he's got this hip injury. He's obviously impacted by that, and his response was, "Of course, I'm going to be out there." So Miami will be interesting in that way. Not going to be interesting in a lot of other ways, especially if the Seahawks win, beat the who they're playing, the Packers on Sunday night. That'll do it. But yeah, it was a very strange energy after that game.
You've been around De'Vondre Campbell. I really haven't. Does this surprise you? Does this seem totally out of character for him?
No, it doesn't seem totally out of character because, like I said, after the Rams game, remember this is in Los Angeles. D. Winter starts to play weak side linebacker snaps ahead of De'Vondre Campbell. De'Vondre Campbell is upset about that. He's frustrated with it. As it happens, D. Winters got hurt in that game too. That's going to be a separate story for us down the line. But so that takeover never really occurred. Campbell retained his starting spot the next week against New England, and started to play better and held on to his starting role until very recently, Sunday against the Bears. And when you nudged me in the press box as we were writing it and said, "Hey, it looks like D. Winters is starting to play ahead of Campbell." And to me, I mean, I'm just guessing here, but I'm sure that this issue in Campbell's mind, well, it started back in week 3, but it came up again against the Bears, and then, like I said, it was too much for him to bear to be behind D. Winters in this game too.
Yeah, I just think he ended his career. I think he ended his NFL career just because you can't trust. He's not very good. I mean, that's just the heart of it. That's why he's losing time. I don't know if D. Winters is for sure better than him, but he's younger than him. He's got a chance to be better than what De'Vondre Campbell's going to be like for the rest of his career. And then you quit, and like that is what you don't do in the NFL. You don't dress. You play if you're healthy, but if you're not mentally there to play, you don't dress. And once you let them activate you on the squad that's going to play in the game, and you're needed, you play. That is just crossing the ultimate line. And I just don't think this is a pervasive thing in the 49ers culture. I really don't. I don't think this is the end of what we know. I think this is the beginning of a kind of a hey, reassertion of what they are. We are players. We play hard. Like the Deebo's. I wrote a little bit about Deebo too. Deebo's struggling. He may or may not be on this team after March. Dropped the pass over the middle that could have been his. Like, look at me. Look, I just want the ball. Give me the ball and I'll score. Drops it. Is in agony afterwards. You can imagine what's going through his mind. But Kittle talks to him afterwards, whether that's what did or not. Like, you got to talk to the media. Like, you got to do this. There's some question whether he's been available regularly to the media. He says he has been. We know Deebo is not the most approachable person in the middle of tough times, but that's fine. He did talk, not elaborately, but he did face it, show up, keep playing, try to play tough. Don't walk off the field because you're pouting. Like, you can just see the thing they're trying to summoning in themselves. And Bosa said, like, over the next few games, we're going to see who wants to be a 49er, and maybe that sets up a momentum for the next season. Again, unknown. We'll see. There's going to be some players who are not on the team in 2020. We know that there might be a lot of them who are not going to be on the team in 2025 based on salaries, based on performance, based on the combination. But I just felt that in them that like this is this is it. Like, this is a terrible season that can continue to be a terrible season in the next year and the next year and the next year, or they can put a period on it and start the next season now. Easy to say. I could just see them summoning it in their minds, and I just can't. Like, there's going to be some drastic decisions made, but the core of this group is going to maintain. I would have to believe in 2025.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd say that Deebo had a heck of a tackle there on Isaac Guerrero in the
He did. That
first
was
quarter.
wild.
That
That
was
was
probably his
wild.
best play.
Yeah.
Let's talk about linebacker moving forward, because interesting things are happening at linebacker. You got Fred Warner as your anchor at middle linebacker, but Drake Greenlaw is an unrestricted free agent, and part of me was thinking, okay, this Achilles issue, Greenlaw is not going to be back 100%. He's not going to kind of be able to show off to the rest of the league who he really is. The 49ers might be able to get him back on a one-year deal this March. But Drake Greenlaw looks like the
He
second
looked
coming of
amazing.
Mike
Yeah.
Singletary. I mean, like some of the greatest linebacker play I've seen all season in that first half. He was everywhere, very aggressive around the line of scrimmage. Kyron Williams, I think, is one of the most underrated running backs in the league. And Greenlaw had him hemmed up in that game. And then I should note that Fred Warner played like Greenlaw did in the second half. Fred Warner ended up with 15
I saw
tackles.
that. I saw
That's
that. What the
that
hell?
ties his career high. So
Yeah.
he's a guy that had been kind of flagging a bit, dealing with an injury. You could feel the lift that Dre Greenlaw's return gave Fred Warner as well. And then you've got D. Winters, who flashes of brilliance every now and then. Every now and then he looks a little like Dre Greenlaw. That's why they drafted him. They saw similarities. But like I said, he started to get snaps in week 3 and then got hurt. He started to get snaps last night and then got hurt. He's hurt a lot. And I don't know whether this team can kind of depend on him. Let's say that Greenlaw gets a sweet deal with the Texans or some other team with some ex-49ers coaches or GMs on it. The natural replacement would be D. Winters, but boy, I think that would be a big leap of faith. I'm not sure you've seen enough consistency from D. Winters to be able to say just to kind of in ink just pen him into that weak side spot. I don't know what they do at that linebacker spot if Dre Greenlaw isn't here, or maybe the answer is you somehow find the money to pay Dre Greenlaw. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that expensive. I mean, I think he's a really great player. He showed it. He just tore his Achilles. Like, you don't see teams sign or pay the big money to guys on the up. Aziz Al-Shaair, right? They couldn't re-sign him because he was a young player on the rise. Now he's obviously controversial, but very talented young player. I'm sure there'll be interest in Dre Greenlaw, but it won't be crazy interest. I just can't see it. He's just back from an Achilles tear. I can see the 49ers saying he means so much to us. Look at what he did to Fred. That defense looked like its old self in the first half. Hufanga and Greenlaw and Bosa back in changes what they look like. It infuses them. I think Bosa said that, whoever said, like, they're all different when 57's out there running around and Hufanga's out there. I can see them bringing, like a 2-year deal, with chances for a high base, but not this guaranteed money. I just don't know. Those guys, players coming off Achilles, do not tend to get big bids because they could get hurt again. And he could get hurt again for the 49ers if they bring him back. I would not count on D. Winters, but he's a good depth piece. And I think they probably have to bring in either draft a linebacker, first 3 rounds, or sign a veteran linebacker. De'Vondre Campbell might be available. Quan Alexander's available. I don't think he was real thrilled about his time with the 49ers either, though. But those guys are around. You can bring in depth linebackers. I don't think it's going to be Jalen Graham, but I think Dre Greenlaw is on a path back, and I think Hufanga, again, you can't bring all your injured guys back, but I don't think Hufanga's necessarily going to get a big deal either. Like, again, a guy's been hurt. You don't really know. He fits this defense, this culture, and he's a safety. What's that number going to be? I don't think it's going to be very high. I think there's a chance they get both Greenlaw and Hufanga back, which may not be the best thing for the 49ers, right? I mean, they're players who have been hurt. So you don't necessarily want to re-sign all hurt players. We saw what they did to Armstead when he got hurt last season. But I don't know that there's a path. If Fongo was 2 years younger and less healthy, there's no way they're keeping him. They could not afford him. That is not the case. He is coming off off a couple injuries, and so I can see them both coming back again. Maybe they're both declining players and it'll look terrible next season. I just saw that and go, I see the energy here. I feel the sense that they want to bring Sorensen back. I don't know that they will, but I think they want to. They want to tell themselves that it was all about personnel, not about scheme. I think it was something about scheme, but I can see them arguing themselves into, let's bring these guys back. This is us. This is who we are. It's not De'Vondre Campbell. It's not some outside people. This is who we are. Let's gather ourselves together. And again, I was struck by Travaris Ward having such a strong opinion about this because, again, he's likely not going to be on the team. He's kind of a newcomer, and this is his third season. And it's not like he's been there for all these runs, yet he was saying it more vocally than anybody. That's something that was Kittle listening to Ward's media stuff, or maybe Ward said it during the meeting. Maybe he said that because he just said, yeah, like Mooney said, it's very selfish. Like,
yeah, I didn't see. No, Kittle wasn't there. I mean, their lockers are close by, but I don't remember.
I think Mooney Ward said that to the team. That's my sense of it, and that becomes an interesting part of how the leadership works. Like the veterans speaking out, and again, a veteran who acknowledged he might not be on the team next season, speaking out like this. There's a culture there. Again, the culture's getting old. The players are getting old. Not been Kyle Shanahan's best season, not been anybody's best season, but something's there, or at least they're trying to tell us there's still something there. And I think I can see Greenlaw for sure come. Just what it means to Fred. Like just Fred, we've joked as a defensive coordinator, part of the team. It means a lot to him, and he talked about it. You could tell how moved he was by having Greenlaw out there. What'd you think of what Dre said? Greenlaw has not talked since before the Super Bowl. What'd you think about what he said? What he played like? What he means to this team? And I was had to move in slow motion. He could barely move.
That's what struck me. There was this real contrast between how he was moving and just the mood he was giving off, because he was walking around like a 95-year-old man, like he was really hurt. But as he said, it was more soreness, and that he expected all of that. And there was a real kind of calm about him. Like, okay, this is the way it should be. I think he was very happy with how he played, how he responded. It was a sort of a question mark. You're a linebacker. You're expected to make sudden violent moves to the line of scrimmage. That's all your kind of Achilles. And so when that was all together, I think that there was a real kind of reassurance with him that everything's going to be just fine. Now, I don't know what that means for the Miami game, whether he can rally for that. Like I said, he was moving around with difficulty after the game. But he's interesting. Travaris Ward was interesting. That was Travaris Ward's first group session too, because people have been very deferential to him after the death of his daughter, and he's kind of begged off of interviews and didn't want to be in part of the scrums and things like that. And I hate to speak for him, but very easy to see him contemplating, not wanting to play anymore this season. In fact, he missed a practice recently where he just was having a bad day and went home for the day. And you understand that given what happened. He's a very, very emotional person. I mean, he's a deep thinker.
He's a really bright guy.
He's extremely bright. He's different than most NFL players. I mean, he has been really, really devastated, affected by what's happened to his family. So it's not a stretch for me to imagine that he's kind of thought about wanting to go home and end the season and just take time off. And the fact that he's kind of pushed himself these last few weeks to play, to me, that's what kind of fueled his comments, because he's kind of looked at that possibility and he stepped back from it. And he had a great reason to be looking at it. Yep. We don't really know what the De'Vondre Campbell's reason is, but like I said, the best guess right now is that he was steamed over, being leapfrogged in the pecking order there. So, I mean, I think that's what's going on with Charvarius Ward. And to fit our podcast theme, he's also a free agent come March.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in the market. I don't think he's coming back, but I don't think his market's going to be what it would have been last year. But there are reasons why it's down. So he might be a smart pickup for some team.
God, they might bring all three back. It would be amazing.
Oh, Tim Kawakami and his bottomless salad.
You're all coming back. All your money. Well, we got to talk offense. Terrible offensive performance. It was rainy, but you know what? Everybody had to deal with that. It wasn't like the Rams' offense was great. I think Shanahan was pointing that out. It was wet for Matt Stafford too. 300 yards of offense, something like that for the Rams, which is not very much. 191 season low for the 49ers. Just looked terrible. Purdy was not great. Receivers certainly were not getting open. Shanahan kept mentioning the two shots that they had, the Deebo one drop and then the Pearsall one, the deep one. I don't know that Ricky Pearsall runs the right routes, Barrows. I just don't know that he does. You know, he's a rookie, did not have a full off season with some injuries, but do you use this as a judgment of Purdy? At least you got to use some of it. That they did not look great after looking great on Sunday. Where do you land the plane on where the 49ers offense is right at this moment?
Yeah, for Pearsall, I think you just have to dismiss it as, I mean, there have been so many plays now where he and Purdy just aren't on the same page. And he's getting a ton of snaps as a rookie. They need to give him. There's nobody else on the depth chart, but I'm not sure in a normal year, if everything had happened normally, whether he'd be seeing that right now. Usually, Shanahan is really tough on the rookies. It's hard for them to get on
receivers for sure.
Rookie receivers, I should say. It's hard for them to get on the field. Shanahan's very demanding, and it's because of those things. I mean, you need to run that route precisely. And I don't think that Pearsall has that precision right now. And it's showing up in Purdy not always looking at him to throw. People have noted, Pearsall was wide open on that play. I just don't think that he has a connection yet, the necessary connection yet with Brock Purdy to where Brock Purdy is kind of automatically throwing to him. Can they get that if they have a full offseason together? Yeah, I think so. I think all of the kind of the physical attributes are in place for Pearsall and Purdy to excel together, but it's just not there yet. And the other part that jumps out is that the Rams, like a lot of opponents, and unlike the Bears, played a lot of press man coverage last night, and that has been the 49ers' kryptonite all season long. And, you know, it goes back to Ayuk and him getting it off to a stuttering start, then getting hurt. The rest of these guys, and Pearsall might be the exception, but the rest of these guys aren't real man beaters. That's what, when you're looking at, we'll be scouting quarterback, we'll be scouting wide receivers.
Whoa, Barrows tipping it off here.
Over the next 4.5 months. And the type of receiver that Kyle Shanahan likes, you know, go back to Dante Pettis. It's these guys with, you know, very loose lower bodies, and then they create separation with their legs and their hips. And, you know, the Arizona receiver, he's going to go way before the 49ers are on the board. But that's the type that he likes. He likes guys that can beat man coverage. He likes Ricky Pearsall for that.
You get out of cuts, right? You
get out of cuts quickly and with violence, so that the defensive back is sort of pushed off as you're making that cut. Something that Brandon Ayuk does very well. So to me, it's a big question mark. I mean, are you expecting Brandon Ayuk to be 100% Brandon Ayuk on September 8, whenever the 2025 season begins? How long does it take to get him back there? Because if you don't, then this is what you're going to be seeing week in and week out. And they're really going to see it in a couple of weeks when they host the Detroit Lions. And if you can't beat that, then I don't see how you can expect your passing game to be very good the whole season.
You know what Shanahan's answer is, and I've been agreeing with him. You got to start with the running game. The running game is what failed to start this game. That means they couldn't open up and get that defense to be, you know, having to play the run, a little play action, and that gets the receiver open. You know, the scheme gets it open with the threat of the run. And obviously Garendo was probably not 100%, and it was not the same kind of game for him as Sunday was. I think it's going to be a perennial story with him. He's going to have a good game, get nicked up. A couple of games where he's not, come back, have a good game, get nicked up. We've seen Elijah Mitchell. It's very familiar. I think running backs get hurt. They get hurt. They get tackled. I understand this, but I think that offensive line needs to be better. And Shanahan does not believe in investing a lot of draft capital or money in offensive linemen. I get it. He thinks that the seventh best tackle is not marginally worse than the third best tackle in the draft. I get the logic of that. But at some point, you need the third best offensive tackle in the draft because he might turn out to be the best one. The seventh best one does not turn out to be the best one. And they're just not creating space. I think I noted to you on the game, I see McKivitz running around and I never see him blocking anybody. It's like, why is 68 not on anybody? I don't know what happens there. Either he's late to the block or not getting the block. And I think Brendel, I don't know, that cannot be their plan to be their starting center next season. And instead of just getting this discount stuff, again, I understand the strategy. You don't want to overpay. You don't want to overspend on offensive line if you can develop a guy from the 5th round, the 7th round, whatever. But man, if you don't invest any 2nd round or 3rd round picks in the offensive line, I think you end up with what they got. They're just not creating holes. We saw it for like one moment or two a game, certainly not in this one. And then nothing happens. And I don't think you can just say, oh, it's the running backs. Oh, it's whatever. I just think they're missing blocks. And maybe, Ben Barch is somebody they needed. He was out of this game, and I don't see holes. Do you see the 49ers changing the way they look and spending some capital on a right guard, on a right tackle, on a center, which they really have not done in the Shanahan era?
Do I see stubborn Kyle Shanahan changing his philosophy?
Being unstubborn?
I don't think so. Their philosophy, and Chris Furster did a nice job of explaining this, is that they would rather spend their top picks on playmakers than linemen. And this coming draft, I talked to Dane Bruler, the Athletics draft guy, and I asked him about tackle, and he said not a great draft for tackles. Mm. And in fact, some of the best tackles, at the top of this draft are sort of tweeners. You're not sure if they're tackles or guards. I don't know how the 49ers will interpret that. Maybe, they like guys who can move, and some of these guys can do that, but certainly not that prototypical tackle in this draft. I would think it just kind of reinforces their philosophy that, let's just wait until the middle rounds to get that position. As far as what was happening Thursday night, I think it was just a combination of things. No Trent Williams. I think the Rams, the Rams play this style of offense. They play the 49ers twice a year. They are ready for those outside zone runs. You saw 97. I can't remember his name. Just kind of leaping out to cut off those outside runs, knowing exactly where the 49ers wanted to get to. He was running that play better than the 49ers offensive lineman were running. He realized that that he needs to get to a point on the field to turn that play back inside to the pursuing defensive lineman, and he did a great job of it. It just wasn't available. So I think it's a combination of that, the fact that Garendo is still learning that play. George Kittle was emphasizing that the other day, that even Christian McCaffrey, after X amount of years in the league and X amount of games in the 49ers system, was still kind of really learning the intricacies of that outside zone run, and how you have to be patient and find the cutback lanes and all that. Very hard to imagine that Garendo has that down, given the number of snaps he's had this year. Now, I think he's got absolutely the potential to get it down. I think the 49ers have to be really, really happy about what he brings to the table. I mean, from a running back perspective, I thought he had a fine game.
Somebody
You still
calling you.
there?
Somebody calling you. Somebody calling you.
Somebody's calling.
Barrows, who's it? De'Vondre Campbell's agent trying to
It's
figure out what's up.
650 number. No, I thought it was Tim Kawakami, actually.
It was not Tim Kawakami. We got to talk about Brock Purdy.
Go
Not
ahead.
not a good game. But again, I did not see a lot of receivers open. Forced that one to Juwan Jennings for the interception. Kind of sealed the game. I just think that was him. Well, maybe Juwan can make a play for me, and if somebody else isn't open, he's going to try to throw it to 15. And you understand some of that was a bad decision. Do you think there's any shakiness at all within the 49ers, within the league, within the locker room about Brock Purdy's long-term standing as the quarterback for this team?
I mean, I think this problem that we keep bringing up week after week, what do they do in the face of tight man coverage? I think that's a question mark. I'm not sure any quarterback is going to excel in that when you don't really have receivers out there that are good at it. But I think that who was it? Was it George Kittle was asked about Brock Purdy and Brock Purdy taking responsibility
Yep.
for that interception. I think Kittle's response about how much he wants to kind of hear that from a quarterback, kind of shows how the rest of the locker room sees Brock Purdy as well. I think they really like him, and they will go to bat for him. And I think that the front office and the coaching staff feel the same way. It's all about finding the right number. I was about to say, I don't think that should be hard to do, but the 49ers always
you never
make it really hard to do. So we'll see. But I think that Kyle Shanahan has settled on Brock Purdy as his guy for the future. I think the players like him. I think it gets done. Hopefully it gets done in January or February. So it's not a kind of an off-season long albatross hanging around this team's neck, just like Brandon Ayuk was.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much of this because I'm going to write a column about this pretty soon. But there's a bunch of things that Shanahan picking Purdy to speak to the team before the last game. De'Amon Lenore and Brock Purdy, what are they? Up and comers. They're right. They're not the established stars, but they're the 20-something guys that will be on the team. Theoretically, Lenore because he signed, Purdy because he will be signed. And then Purdy saying he blamed himself. He's got to be better. And George with that specific comment. No, it's not his fault. He's won us games. He shouldn't be doing this, but I love that he's doing this. That this is what a quarterback does in this moment. It is all juxtaposed in our minds, and I think in their minds too, with a linebacker who quit on them. But even that, it's the 49er culture of Dre Greenlaw coming back from injury and playing like that, of George Kittle playing through whatever he's playing through, Fred Warner playing through whatever he's playing through, all this stuff, and the quarterback who's saying, I got to be better. It's on me. It's not anybody else. We all know Ricky Pearsall's probably run some wrong routes. Brock Purdy's not going to say that. He's not even going to hint that these are things. This is what you want in your quarterback. Do you want a bunch of stinkers like he's throwing up this season? No. And you don't want to believe that that's what the quarterback he is. But he's still, I was like looking at, he's like younger than every starting quarterback in the league, except for like 3. It's still a young quarterback, obviously with physical attributes that are not classic drop back quarterback. Obviously his arm strength is not classic. He does not have a Justin Herbert arm or Josh Allen. But man, is there any reason to believe that someone who does have that arm is going to have his moxie, his smarts, his leadership ability? No, there's no way. He's not going to get $60 million a year. I think we know that. I don't think he's going to want $60 million a year. Can they find a number? Again, I probably already talked too much about the column I'm going to write, but I think there's a number. I think there's a way you can figure this out to be. Maybe it's not 6 years, 5 years. Maybe it's 3 years. That would put the 49ers in some jeopardy, though, right? He plays a great couple years, and all of a sudden he's coming up on total free agency, and they're kind of screwed. Or they could franchise tag him after that. I'm thinking through my column as we go here, Barrows. Don't you love that?
I hope you're taking notes here.
Most of these are already written down. I was going to write this actually earlier this week. Then I flipped it for a Warriors trade column. Always got these interesting columns floating around about these teams. But I just think the elements are there that he's the guy they want to bring back. And then you don't want that position to be a question mark. You don't want to not know. We saw what they did when they didn't know last time. They traded 3 first-round draft picks and drafted a guy who couldn't play for them. You don't want to put that into the world. And Like, even if they could get Sam Darnold, and that would cost a hell of a lot of money, by the way, almost as much as Purdy or right in there. Then are you sure about Sam Darnold, or are you sure about Brock Purdy? I think you're more sure about Brock Purdy. So, anything else you want to talk about here, Barrows?
Well, what I've heard from this whole conversation is that the 2025 49ers MVP is going to be De'Vondre Campbell, because he's like setting the tone for the whole offseason, everything else. He's the one that lit the fuse for the 49ers 2025 Super Bowl run, basically.
You sure felt that vibe in their minds, at least. But yeah, last week it was Purdy and Lenore resetting the chemistry. I sure wrote it. Then last night it was De'Vondre Campbell pissing them off so much that it's going to change. It changes. It's football. Guys get hurt. Guys will go. Maybe some of the people who were most emotional about sticking together Sunday, today, last night, whatever day it was, won't be on the team in 2025. Like, it all changes. But it's important to try to chart the emotional biorhythms of a football team. I really feel that. I really try to do that. And we sure felt kind of an impulse reaction last night. I'll put it that way. All right. Yeah. Shanahan's talking in a few hours. We don't know what he's going to say. We don't know what's going to happen with De'Vondre Campbell for sure, other than all bets are that he will no longer be on the team, maybe by the end of the day, or tomorrow. I'll leave that to Matt Barrows to take it from here. You got Shanahan today.
I got Shanahan. Yep.
Yeah. Take him down. All right, Barrows. That's the show for today.